Do you want to live a life of freedom and adventure? Are you wanting more than the daily grind? Me too. Welcome to the Emma Lovell Show, a place where we talk about living a life you love now. I'm your host, Emma Lovell, and my number one value is freedom. I've spent the last 14 years running a business and traveling the world, and now I take my husband and toddler along for the adventure too. It's possible, and I know you can create a life doing what you truly love as well. This podcast will inspire, motivate, and encourage you to go after your dreams, to create a life you love and to live it now, not wait for retirement or someday in the future. I'll be sharing episodes weekly about how I harmonize business, travel, and self-care. I'll also bring on incredible guests to share their journeys, the wins, the challenges, and how they're creating a life they love. Let's jump in and get dreaming. This is a space for you to manifest a life you love. I would like to acknowledge and recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of this place, now known as Australia. I am grateful for the continuing care of the land, waterways and skies where I work, live, listen, learn and play. From here on Yugambeh country and from wherever you are listening, I pay my respects to the elders past and present. Welcome everyone to the Emma Lovell Show. This is where we blend business, travel and self-care. We're talking about the pleasure life, finding the harmony, and I have a very special guest here today, beautiful Sara Howard. She is going to give us a little introduction. Sara, tell everyone, who are you?
Oh, who am I? Wow, thank you so much, Emma, and thank you everyone for joining us on the show. My name's Sara Howard. I am a writer and an author. I run a business called Writers Australia based in Sydney. And I've been doing that for 18 years now. We now have 7 staff in Sydney and we work for lots of corporate clients from all over the world, really, writing content and copywriting and things like that. I also just wrote a book called Beyond Solar, which I happen to have here, partially inspired by my wonderful Emma Lovell. So you've been such a cheerleader for me finally publishing my first book, but thank you for being on my side all the way. So I've written my first book. I'm an author as well. I'm also a mum. I've got 2 semi-grown-up children, 2 sons who are both at university in Sydney, and they're amazing. And I've spent a whole lifetime of parenting traveling with them, and I want to talk to Emma about that today if she'll let me. And I'm also married to Jason, who runs a technology company, and we met at university, so we've been together for a very, very long time. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. I love the holistic introduction. Sometimes people give the intro and it's like just the work bit. I'm like, no, I want to hear the life bit. That's, for me, it's all encompassed. So you're very fun to see our books together because you came up to me we went to the Content Bite, and that's where I announced I was going to write a book. And then the next year I was standing there with my book and we were talking about the fact that you were writing your book. And now, I don't know if they're doing one this year, but the next time we can stand there together with our books.
That would be so beautiful. And they actually look really nice next to each other. I've got to say, they're like sisters, I think.
I know. They are great companions. And because for anyone who is a business owner, that part of the pleasure, the business part, or how to make money, that can be kind of a blocker to the rest of it. The business can take over and that can impact the travel and the leisure and the self-care. Totally. And so I loved, Sara reached out to me and wanted to be on the podcast, and I was like, wanted her to be on the podcast. And of course, when you've written a book, you're out there doing the publicity thing, but she was like, yeah, we'll talk about the book, like, yay, all that. But I want to talk about pleasure. And I'm like, well, you've come to the right place. So I would love to hear, what's your definition of pleasure? Like when you heard that, what's it mean?
It's so funny when you first talked about the book and this concept of pleasure. I was like, oh, I've been doing that for a while now. I just didn't know it had a name. For me, like you, Emma, I love traveling. I've always loved traveling. And I remember when my dad sat me down when I was about 14, and instead of saying, what do you want to do when you grow up, which is such a stupid question to ask a child. Honestly, don't ever do that. He said, I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're 25, which felt very old when you're 14. Tell me what you're doing. Where are you? Who are you doing with? Where are you? And I said, I'm traveling around the world shopping with other people's money. I don't know where I came up with that statement, but he looked at me and he said, maybe you should be a retail buyer. Let's see how we go with that. And he worked in retail. He understood how that world worked. And in my 20s, that's exactly what I was doing. I was a retail buyer. I started with Topshop in London. I then worked with Urban Outfitters in America. And my job was to travel the world with a big budget buying things. That was literally my job. It was so much fun, honestly. And I would build a lot of pleasure into that. I remember at one point I was in Bangkok on a sourcing trip, and my husband would swing by because he was on a work trip, and we'd have a weekend together at this fancy hotel that my company was paying for. It was brilliant. So for me, that was pleasure. And then once kids come along, okay, the definition of pleasure changes again. And sometimes it's about the sanity reset time that you need at the end of a work trip, or to build in so that you can have a proper break for yourself or find yourself again or learn something new. So that became pleasure for me as well. And I'd find ways to build that into my business as I grew it as well.
And you brought pleasure into the book because I believe you were writing the book in Italy, was it?
Yes, of course. That's right. I posted something on Instagram. And you know what it's like, Emma, you're always thinking about the book. You're always thinking of something else to put in a new chapter, and took the manuscript with me and was working on it as we traveled for about 5 weeks. That was on our freedom year. So that's when our kids, I want to put this concept out to the world. If you've got kids, when your kids finish school, the last one finishes high school, you deserve to have a year off where you can do whatever you want. And we spent 5 weeks traveling around Europe, and it was the best fun. It was like we were kids again, honestly. We had no responsibilities. We just made it up as we went along. And yes, I had my laptop with me. If the idea sparked, I would type a bit more into the chapter and keep going with it, because you're always thinking about it, which was fun. It was great fun.
I love it. I totally have a vision of so one of my goals is to visit every UN recognized country in the world. And
wow.
I'm going to celebrate. We were last year in Lake Como, and we walked past the Grand Tramezzo Hotel, and it's like casual $1,800 a night. And my son said, can we stay there? And bless him, I said, oh yeah, darling, would you like to pay for it? And he had a little hat on with a pocket, and he opened up the pocket and pulled out a coin. And I was like, oh, sweetie. I was like, one day we can use your pocket money, you can buy mummy. But I said, you know what, babe, I'll promise you when you're 18, I will bring you back here, because Matt and Finn will be 18 and 50 that year. So I'm just like, yeah, so his 18th birthday, and it'll be like an open invitation, anyone who can get there, and we will stay at the Grand Tramezzo for a couple of nights, and that will be the trip. And I was like, maybe that's also, my goal was to visit every country by the time I'm 50. So I'll be like, maybe it's like, that's the place we return to celebrate. He's turning 18, he's turning 50. Like, just, I can see it, and it's so nice.
Yes.
That you're like,
and that's so exciting to have that to work towards. And I think that's the thing. I think it's intentionally building that into your life, putting some money aside each year to save for that goal, using the travel hacks that you share as well. Like, we're big believers in using frequent flyer points to do what we do, and it enables this great life. Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
And it sounds like your dad is wonderful. Like, that's so awesome. He did that visioning exercise with you at such a young age, but also that encouraged that, because I think sometimes we can't see it. And the lie that I brought into for a long time was, you can't make money and travel, or you can't travel and make money. You can't make money from travel. Like, ridiculous, because there's an entire industry. And I was a travel writer, or I was a writer who traveled. Like, it was like, I don't know. And I said to Lindy Alexander, who's a colleague of ours and who's in the book, I said to her, like, it's always like that Legally Blonde thing. I'm like, what? It's hard. It's hard to get into Harvard. And to not discount anyone who's in this industry, because it's competitive, but it's not hard per se. Like, it's a skill set, I guess. Maybe I'm diminishing both of our skill sets, but it's also a mindset. I was blocking myself, even though I was doing it, just as you're going, oh wow, I've been doing this all along. I had that realization before I wrote the book. Like, I also had to realize that I had been separating business and travel, even though I had been doing it all along.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's a really important concept to get back to, in a way, because I think I see this a lot with my clients at work, and the pressure on people in a corporate job right now is intense, right? I get it. I see it. The pressure to always be on, to always have work with you. It's very hard to create boundaries around that, or to feel like you have permission, and that's the word really, to add a day onto a work trip, or to meet friends for dinner after a big meeting, rather than going back to your hotel room to catch up on the contracts you've just signed, or whatever it might be. And so I think we've got to get back to this idea of giving ourselves permission to enjoy the opportunities that we're given through our work and through our life. Like it doesn't have to be one thing or the other.
And you had that mindset earlier, like even before with your husband coming, but some people have so separated. Like this is such a
Yes.
1960s way of thinking that it's like, no, I'm here for work and I've got to
Yes.
work. No, I couldn't bring my husband, but because you were able to have that, oh, I could make this a possibility. And sometimes it's just
Yes.
about asking, can I do this?
Yes.
Have the day,
Yeah.
not anticipating that they're going to say no already. They'd be very happy for you to, but you've already decided, you've made the choice that that's not available to you.
Yeah, and I think you've done that in your life, and I have as well. I remember I was doing a buying trip, and I hadn't been back to Australia. Like I was living in the US, hadn't been back to Australia for a long time. Really needed to see my family, and I went to my boss and said, "Hey, I've got this trip. We used to call it the Far East. That's what they call it over there. I've got this Far East sourcing trip. Would it be possible if I took some leave and I routed the flight back through Sydney, and I'll pay the difference?" And he said, "You don't even have to ask." Don't worry. It's not, he said, "Tell me, I don't think it's going to cost much more. Like, just do it, book it that way." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
All I had to do was ask.
All I had to do was ask. And I just thought, oh, so often and the problem is if you don't ask, you allow yourself to build up these resentments for the things you've never even asked for. It actually doesn't create a good work environment in the long term.
No, and I think I love that you're talking because you have that corporate experience and you're a business owner. Because I think people who look at us as business owners, and for a long time I identified as a freelancer, they're like, "Oh, well, it's all well and good for you, Emma. Like you can do it." And it's, yeah, but if I go away, I don't get paid. Like that's why I work while I go, because I've got to make it work. And maybe people are going to I know people are going to get sort of angry at me about this because I'm just like, but did you ask? Are you having that conversation? Maybe you've already decided that before you. And I had this conversation with my husband. He's like, "Oh, I won't be able to go away for 4 weeks." And I was like, "Have you talked to the manager? Like, have you talked to the boss? Like, maybe it's not 4 weeks, maybe it's 3 weeks." But we've managed to get him 7 weeks off. And the way that the leave has worked, and he's in a full-time job, and his job is very stuck. He works at SeaWorld. The animals live there. He cannot take them with him. So
Awesome job.
Yeah. So, we've managed to be paid the whole time the way that his leave has been structured, and weekends and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, if you didn't ask the question. And so my challenge to people who are in full-time roles, their thing is, like, you have evidence. I know people who are currently in corporate roles who are really maximizing their time around their work, finding ways to attend things within their work and extend and things like that. And so I'm like, it has to be possible.
Yeah, it absolutely has to. And I think, to be honest, it's more possible than ever because COVID made the work from anywhere mantra possible for knowledge workers, at least. And so I know there've been lots of situations where people have been able to get their boss to sign up on the fact that they'll do a month's work from Europe. And the downside is that they're expected to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be on for a few meetings. But the upside is they get the afternoon with their kids on a Greek island. And so they're making it work, And so I think there's a lot more options than we used to have because we can be connected. The only thing that I would say, Emma, and maybe this is a question for you, is I'm also a big believer in setting boundaries where you do not take work with you when you travel. And particularly for me, I've learned and realized the joy of traveling with your kids as they get older, and seeing the world through their eyes is such a great thing. And teaching them how to be good, responsible travelers is such a great thing. And if you bring work with you, it dilutes that experience for them because you're distracted. And so I think being in the moment with your kids or your family and having a real proper break, adventuring around the world or whatever it might be, is just as important. So being intentional around that is important too.
Yes. And I love this because it came up recently. And I think because leisure, the term means combining business and leisure. And the classic definition would be going on a conference, going to a meeting and extending, or going on a work trip where you take your family. And obviously then we get to add in with business owners that you can do your work from anywhere. So that's how you could be, people say pleasuring now, the verb. But I am such an advocate for switching off. And people always find it funny that they think I would struggle when there's no internet. They're like, "Oh, there was no internet. Emma, are you going to be okay?" And I'm like, I'm fine when I know there is not. And I actually intentionally put myself in places where there is no internet. So we went on a cruise in January for 3 nights and I didn't buy the internet package. And I was like, I could not wait. And think it's helpful at times for me now when the planes have internet. There are times where it's good, but that's why I loved the flight.
Mm.
Because honestly, I want to test this time, one time, Sarah. I reckon I could write a book on long haul flights because
Ooh,
I wrote like probably 3 chapters of my book on flights to India and back. So I reckon I love that time for the freedom.
yes.
Yes, yes, okay, then I was still working, but that is something I'm very
Well, what else
joyful.
are you going to do on a long haul
Yeah,
flight? You're watching movies. Honestly, I think it's a great time to work because you've got no other distractions. You're not
my
expected to
choice.
be anywhere else in the
I
world.
think when it's
Really,
your choice, and I think
yeah.
this is where the communication,
Trains are really good for that too. Long train trips.
yeah, and it's the communication, the conversation, but absolutely deciding at times it's really important to have a vacation, a switch off.
Mm,
And I will put that's where I love like retreats or treks and cycles, like adventure travel, where you're in a place where you're like, oh, like we went to Mongolia, no internet,
mm,
bliss. And I'm happy for that. So I think it's being intentional about what is the trip and deciding before. I think when the boundaries are not clear and it bleeds in and it leaks, that's when there's that disharmony.
yes.
That's when then there's the stress. That's when there's the friction.
Yeah.
When all you've said, and I have, I've said 2 hours and then I've done four.
Yeah.
That's not fair. So
Yeah.
today was not a work day and then something's come up. So that's where, but also I said to you before we got on, I love, and we'll go back to the book, Beyond Solo, because I made the mistake early on in my business where it was just me. And I thought the only way to get a proper break and to have a holiday and to have a proper holiday with my, at the time, boyfriend, now husband, was to get rid of all my clients and go on this 4-week trip. But then by the end of the trip, I was so stressed about not having work when I came back. When seriously, I could have just told them I was like 4 weeks. Like I was young, just like, oh my God, it's forever. But I didn't want to think about them. I didn't want to worry about them. I thought the only way to do that was to clear my roster, to end all work, to have nothing in the pipeline so that I could be free and travel. And it created another stress. So tell us a bit, like, what does Beyond Solo mean?
That's a good question. So I think it was almost exactly that when I started my business, and it was a copywriting business. It was just me and like many freelance writers. And I did have that moment where I thought, I want to take a holiday with my kids, but I want to take a holiday with my kids. I don't want to lose my clients, just you found as well. But also I don't want to lose my income. I need to build a business that actually keeps paying me when I'm taking a break, just like my employees would expect or any employee would expect, right? So I intentionally built a company around that. And I guess that's the reason I hired my first employee, was actually so I could take a holiday. And that actually became part of our culture without me realizing it, was that you don't take work with you when you go on holiday, right? And I think that sets an expectation around what it is to work at a business. And that's just part of our kind of collaborative, flexible culture that we've created as a business. But the reason I wrote Beyond Solo was I realized 18 years after building an agency that there are actually other models to grow a business. And even if it's one that where you want to take a holiday and not take work with you. And so what I did was I interviewed business founders and small business owners and freelancers all over the world around the different kinds of models for business that they've built and how that works for them. And they really let me in under the hood operationally to say, what is the money behind this? What is driving this business? How sustainable is it? What does growth look like to them? What does good growth look like to them? What mistakes have they made? And so that's what the book is about. It unpacks all those different models to growth. And as well as hiring in-house staff, which comes with a whole other level of stress. Let me tell you, you suddenly shift from being really good at your job, writing in my case, to having to be really good at coaching and mentoring other people, different skill set, right? So I had to learn a lot about that. But you can also outsource, which I think is what you do, Emma. You can have a VA. You're probably already outsourcing to a bookkeeper or an accountant anyway. So that's a simple model, scales up and down. You can create a collective, you can create a cooperative and work with like-minded peers who are in different areas to you, complementary skill sets. You can create products that generate revenue while you're sleeping or traveling. How genius is that? I wish I had thought of that sooner. So there's lots of different models to grow. And then the book also, Beyond Solo, I wanted to explore what it means to finish that growth journey. What happens when you want to actually step off the business bandwagon and do something else? How do you walk away from that? How do you exit? And get some tangible value out of that business or create something that will continue without you. So there's a whole chapter on that as well, which was really important to me as well.
And like, for me, starting so young, I started at 22. Like, I think I just foresaw, and it will be the case, that I would probably run my business in some way, shape, or form for a long time, maybe forever. But now I've started a new company. I'm starting that with an exit strategy. So I didn't know that when I was back then. And I've had to work on this. Like, I am not the business. So it's that, even though, because I'm a personal brand, but it's that there's products, like there's the product of, which just sounds weird, yeah, but there's the product of Emma Lovell, the product, and the book, creating a book and creating a product. Totally didn't realize I was creating an e-commerce business, writing a book. I was like, shit, how do you post stuff? I was like, like learn a whole new business overnight. We learn a whole new industry overnight, or over a year. And so I just, now anything that I set up in the future, and anytime I enter something, I'd always say just start. I think I'm going to add a caveat to that, which is just start and think about how it will possibly end.
Yes, because you then can create a structure around it that will build the value into it. So it's something that you can sell, or you might be able to succession plan your way out of it if you have staff that want to buy it from you, or business partners and things like that. So you do need to start with the end in mind. And it's actually very liberating to do that. And I spoke to lots of people who'd done that very successfully, including one person who'd handed his business over to his family. It was a really beautiful story. So there's lots of possibilities.
I think that's like when you come, and one of the biggest things you'll hear from business owners and from our industry, from writing freelancers, they're like, but I don't want to manage other people. I don't want to have an agency. I want to have it. And they just, like, in contrary to that, saying having the end in mind, they're picturing this empire, and we're like, no, we're just talking about like a bookkeeper or an assistant.
That's right.
We're talking about potentially
a day a week, something, just because you get to a certain point where it's a lot more cost effective for you to pay someone else to do those types of tasks. Like, you're not the best person at social media post design, right? You are not the best person at bookkeeping. You're not the best person at audio editing, whatever those little tasks are. You can make someone else accountable for those things, and then free yourself to focus on the things you love doing, building relationships with clients, creating strategy, whatever that might be. I think it's so empowering to do that. And it's also really empowering to have someone who believes in your business and your brand as much as you do, and you can bounce stuff around with. It's so much more fun than being on your own. So creating some kind of collaborative structure, however that looks, is such a lovely thing to do as a business owner.
And that care, like, that is so touching when someone really is in your corner, because it can be very solo and very lonely, and ultimately the buck stops with you, and you have to recognize people are never going to care as much as you do. But I did it alone for so long. 10 years I did it alone, young, alone. I had mentors. I had wonderful mentors. I had wonderful colleagues. The networking is a strength for me. So bringing people in, which is why I'm very happy to pay it forward, Sarah, when someone's ever's doing something new for them. But to do it alone, I just don't do it alone for so long. And I think that the beauty of this day and age is that we can access those people a lot more easily. Like, when 10 years ago, you would have had to go to the accountant's office, and you would have had to, or you thought you had to get the staff in. And I was like, I don't have an office. Where are they going to sit?
So true.
Even though I worked online. And I would bring contractors in, but it was very feast or famine. So it was like, oh, I'm busy. Get someone on, train them up. Oh, we don't have work. Out you go. A few months ago, busy. And I was like, it was realizing that I was like, the consistent help. And that then it's has to be part of my business. And that actually changed for me, and we'll go to the children, because the blessing of having children is you cannot run it like that anymore. And for me, like, you nest for the baby, I nested the business. So
that's a nice way to look at it, actually. Yeah, that's a really nice way to look at it.
And so when did the business started with the children for you? Was that?
Yes, because I, like many women particularly, I realised I needed something more flexible that could work around childcare, but at least generate enough income to cover childcare. I mean, that was really my primary concern at the time. And so I retrained, having been a retail buyer, I retrained as a writer, discovered I loved it. Oh my God, the joy of discovering that someone would pay me to just write all day. This was like, this is great. And then very quickly got too busy to just do all the work myself. So the business grew. But yeah, my kids have grown up alongside in the business, and not just my business, my husband's business as well. He started a business when we were at university. So we've had two businesses growing as we've grown our family, and I don't think our kids know it any other way. And I guess we've both been able to create an environment where that flexibility, I'm sure you find that this, Emma, as well, flexibility when you're running your own business, it's kind of a myth. Right. It's only as good as the boundaries you put on it. And so, yes, there was flexibility, but also there was this constant tension, or is this constant tension of, instead of having one boss, you've got 50 clients and they're all the most important person, right, to them. And then you've also got kids and the school assembly and wanting to help out with the P&F and all the other things and the joyful things that come with having kids growing up in a community. And so I found it was a constant tension with that flexibility. And that's where I think the pleasure lifestyle and being intentional around how you make that work for you becomes even more important, and how you bring your family along for that journey as well.
And then there's an acceptance and a surrender that, like, I think when you get over that, it's never going to be, that's why I don't say balance. That's what this is, and blend. And I know that blend can scare people because of, obviously, like you said, the bleeding and the leaking in, and that's where boundaries are important, and that's self-care, and that's like, you have to have boundaries to be able to do this. And there's times where I think my boundaries aren't strong enough, or I'm not organized enough, but somebody coming in externally go, you're so organized, you have such good boundaries, and you're like, oh, not in my head. So circus is in here. But I guess the circus is quite organized too. But yeah, I think that the flexibility and the freedom, people said to me before I had Finn, that was such a gift. And I just say choices, because originally I had a chapter in the book called Sacrifices, but I think it's so much more empowering to say choices. And there's times where you choose to be there for your clients, and there's a time where you choose to be there for the business. And the book was very important, as for you, I'm sure. And there are times where you really, and you actually enjoy your work, so you're choosing to be in it. So then we have to own that and go, well, yeah, I'm not going to feel resentful about that. And then there's times where you choose, I'm sorry, the business has to take a back seat or slow down because my family needs me. And that's the harmony and the blend, as opposed to the balance where you think at some magical day, everything's going to be even splits and everybody's going to be bullshit.
That never happens. Never. If you're striving towards that, forget about it. You're absolutely right. And I think the thing we've got to let go of is guilt. You can't be everywhere all at once, and you do have to make choices, and you have to just trust your instincts with that and be honest and open with your partner or whoever else is part of that story, because there are going to be times where they'll have to pick up the slack while you focus on this. And as long as everyone's on the same page, that's fine. But it's when you're not open about it and honest about it, that's where I think things can unravel quite quickly, and the guilt and the resentment starts to bubble with someone somewhere. Yeah.
And so a lot of people are very worried about me with impending school. So Finn will be 5 next year. He's going to school. So if you're like, no, Emma, when he goes to school, and I'm just like, watch me. How do you make it work with the school holidays? Like, what would you have some pleasure tips around that? Like, how
First thing I would say is primary school doesn't matter as much as you think it does.
Thank you.
So I would absolutely not panic around taking Finn out of school at random times in the early years, because he will learn more with you in the world than he probably will in the year 3 classroom for a week or so. And I don't mean for extended periods of time. And I do think you have to be pretty honest with yourself and have some visibility of the school calendar. Like, I know when that plan's coming up and those kind of important things that you do have to do. And the important things for Finn as well with his friendship groups, be part of the community, but also he will learn more traveling with you. So don't feel locked down to school in primary years. High school is a whole other thing. And you do really need to be around for your kids in those tricky teenage years. And it's not so much like when they're toddlers that you've got to be around them, like supervising them. It's just you've got to be available to them when they need you. And so that's the bit that's sort of harder to manage. And I think it's the blend, it's the harmony. And when you've got a supportive partner, you've got 2 parents, you've got grandparents, you've got a community around you, you can make that work. It's not that hard. But yeah, setting those boundaries and being present is all it is. Yeah.
Well, and I'm looking forward to it because right now the holidays don't impact us. And so then I forget and I do things like launch during school holidays or try to run a retreat the week after school holidays. And everyone's like, no, I can't because I'm working. And I'm like, nah. So I'm actually looking forward to it, which people like, because I am like a toddler and I need boundaries. And so I'm looking forward to having that structure of knowing when it happens. Right now, I'm arbitrarily picking when we're going on trips and we could go at any point. Or, does this work thing up? Can I come? Can I can't? I'm looking forward to a forced no. Being like, no,
Yes.
I can't. I have to be there for Finn's school. And it's like, I don't really want to do that anyway. So
Yes.
I'm looking forward to, like, can't believe it. I'm like looking forward to the structure. Also, as I wrote in my book, there's 13 weeks. 13 weeks of the year that they're off. That's a lot.
And you have to fill them somehow, right? He's not going to be looking after himself in those 13 weeks. It actually is a gift to create this environment for him. So,
and this is the gift of this is where the freedom that we have set up comes in, because yes, my husband can't go away for as long, but he is totally happy. We've already discussed this, especially over that 6-7 weeks. I'm going to take him to India. Or I'll take it to America or to the UK where I have family, or invite the grandparents and go somewhere. Or Matt comes for 3 weeks and I do 3 weeks myself. I intend to be away for a lot of those chunks.
Yeah, great.
In Australia, and maybe it's just shorter trips. I know someone who has the rule only 3 nights away while her daughter's at school. And then the holidays can be longer. Or if it's longer than a week, then she has to do then they have something like some quality catch-up time after, or they have to come and meet her for a weekend or something like that. So, you can set your own rules or guidelines or boundaries. Also, it's like 10 years of their life. I'm sure some years will be something and some years will be something like, I don't know. See that other people have done it and you've got to figure it out for yourself. Surely there's a way. Right?
Yeah, there is always a way. And I've seen people who have taken their kids out of school at primary school age, early primary school age, and just driven around Australia for a year. And they're homeschooling, and that's fine. That works for them. So there's so many different ways you can do it, and you can catch up on the work when you need to. I think the important thing is to know that as a family, this is part of your culture, is to travel and adventure and explore the world and see the world, right? So you create intention around that. And that's pretty much what my husband and I did when we had our young family. We were quite young as well, and we didn't have a lot of money. We had a mortgage in Sydney. We couldn't do it all. And so we sat down and went, are we going to move to a bigger house, or are we going to renovate to make this one work? Are we going to send our kids to private school or not? All those big decisions you have to make. And we decided as a family that traveling was really important to us. So we would put aside a small amount of money every month and do one big amazing trip with the boys every 2 years. And that was a commitment we made to ourselves as a family. And I'm so glad we did that, because those are the best memories we've got. And my kids have grown up. We went to Sri Lanka. We went to Vietnam. We went sailing around Croatia. We did beautiful things as a family when they were still quite young. And they remember all those things. And now they're out as 20-something-year-olds traveling in the world. And they're such good travelers. They're really responsible travelers. They understand how train timetables work. They can do it all because they've grown up doing it all. And I love seeing the world through their eyes still. We still travel together, and I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, look, I'm 37 and I still go away with my dad and my parents. And I just think people go, oh, one day they want to do this, or one day this, or it's going to get hard. And I'm like, can we just stop putting that onto other people? So for anyone who's listening who's had that, maybe it's not even your belief that you can't, it's that somebody's told you can't. And I just encourage you to listen to Sara and I, to see other examples of people who have done it. And the whole thing for me is I knew it was possible because I was a child once. You're like, oh, when you have a child. I'm like, but I was a child who did it. My parents took us to the UK and USA when I was 9. It was the best. Like you said, Bali for 10 days when I was 11. Best family trip. And the way that we made the harmony of that trip work. Beautiful memories. And that's why, as you said, it's part of my culture as a child. So of course that's the culture that I want for my family. Yeah.
And let me tell you, your kids will always come with you if you're paying.
Like, oh, Finn won't want to go off. And I'm like, he's going to be like, hey, Mum, I'm going to Colombia. I'll be like, oh, cool, babe, have fun. I'll meet you there. Or you go, I'll catch you in Argentina. I'm like, I watched a show and this mum and son met up in Rome. And I was like, oh my gosh, we can do that.
Absolutely.
To that. And I love seeing, and I'm so grateful for what you shared Sarah, and obviously we've talked about the business stuff, but it's the life stuff and that.
And this really is the fundamental philosophy of the way I run a business, but also the reason for the book is I believe building a business of your own is to enable the life you want. And this is very aligned with your story, right? And so if you're feeling like your business isn't serving your life anymore, you're in control. You can do something about that. You're the boss. And so it's about building the business that creates the life you want, not the other way around. And for a long time, I was working every waking hour for the business, right? And I felt like the business wasn't serving me. I was serving the business. I had to flip that mindset again and remember that it was my business and I got to design it to work around my life and enable my life. And that's what this is all about, regardless of whether that means travel or anything else that's important to you, time for volunteering, time to create, whatever that is. Your business should enable that for you.
Pleasure, that's
pleasure.
Just simple. Someone said to me one day they were reading the book in the garden. She said, "It's not very pleasure." I said, "No, but it's leisure." And that's the most beautiful place to be reading the book, like sitting in the garden, like you taking time out to read. Yeah, that's chapter 4. That's self-care. Well done. Like it's, that you finding the ways to make it work for you and what's important for you, and you decide and design that. Like you have this culture of really trying to empower your employees to take that break because they probably won't. But, then if somebody else enjoys, I love sitting on a cruise ship balcony working, which some would horrify people, but it's a really fun way to work. And I like working on planes. And my friend Steve, he's always flying flat. I was like, "Do you work on planes?" He's like, "Absolutely not." And I'm like, "But you get so much done." And people are baffled. They're like, "How would you work?" "No, that's my no work zone." And I'm like, "That's my creativity zone." Like,
everyone has their own boundaries, I guess. And I get that. I just find for me, when you're traveling, including the plane, that's when the ideas come because you're letting your brain rest away from the usual routine. The new ideas come. And that's the fun part. You want to capture them in some way. If you call that working, it is.
It's working for you and you get to And I love what you've created. I'm still working through
the
book because I'm like, oh, this is like important stuff. And, seeing that future vision of the children in high school, I think it's like, okay, how does it look there? Because right now, maybe it's working for now. I think it's really great to think about A, the exit strategy, but B, like maybe in 5 years, this is a bit easier because I've got more online products or I'm doing more VIP. I'm doing sort of 1 day of work for a lot higher income, so I don't have to do 5 days a week. I don't know.
Exactly.
Why can't we say work towards that? It's not happening today, but you've been running your business 18 years. I've been running my business 15 years. Like 5, 10, 15 years can come quickly. And so
it does.
Decide today what you want it to look like and you start making those changes. I think this is just going to help people so much, Sarah. And it's so fun having gone through the journey myself. It's been really fun to watch your journey. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Your support and enthusiasm honestly got me through some really moments of self-doubt, which we all have, right? So thank you so much, Emma. You've been such a big champion. I really appreciate it.
I love it. Now, Sarah, how can we connect with you, find you? What's the best way?
I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time. So if you search on LinkedIn, Sara Howard, it's Sara without an H, Writers Australia, you'll find me there. I'm also on Instagram at Sara Howard _writes. So you might be able to find me there, maybe through Emma. I'm sure we're connected. And and also I've got a website for the book called beyondsolo.co. You can sign up there to be a good growth VIP and I'll send you lots of really helpful templates and tips in a sort of randomly ad hoc way every couple of weeks or so. But I will tell you, they're quite valuable. They're the things that I wish I'd had when I started my business. And so they may well be the things that can help you solve a problem with whatever you're dealing with at the moment as well. So worth signing up for that as well. Also, like there's special offers and things that come through that as well. Because as Emma said, we're running an e-commerce business now as well as authors. Who knew?
I just accidentally started a business. I love that though with the book, like what the book then generates all these different, like for me, it's just given a lot of that stuff that didn't fit into my more traditional business or the way we worked. I love that now, maybe like under Writers Australia, you couldn't do that mentoring. You did mentoring coaching internally, but you couldn't do that. So all these things that you now get to share in this different way, like that place to live. I keep talking about having somewhere for things to live and that. And so you get to have all that and you get to keep creating the book is a huge piece of work, but you get to keep creating and sparking off that.
Yeah. And for me, that was really important. This is what I want the next chapter of my life to look like, is to, as well as the writer's business, is to have this community of amazing people like you, Emma, founders and freelancers and solopreneurs, that we can come together and solve some of the big problems, because there's a lot of change happening in our industries. And I think having those networks is so important, and I love mentoring and coaching other people. So if anyone's listening and they want to talk to me directly, I'm very happy to take questions. So just get in touch.
Bubbling there, and I'm like, oh, you come and tap me on the shoulder. Thank you so much, Sarah. One more question before you go.
Yeah.
What does living a life you love look like now?
Oh my goodness. I think I'm living it right now, this minute. I'm recording this from my second home. I'm very lucky to have a second home on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. And so I've been working from here this week. This is where I wrote a lot of the book as well, because it's a very quiet beach community. And this morning I went for a walk, watched the sunrise over the ocean. Last night I watched the sunset over the ocean, saw dolphins. That is living a life I love. This afternoon I'll drive back to Sydney, see my kids. That is living a life I love. I'll see my book club next week. That's living a life I love. My life is full of all these amazing people and experiences, and that's what I've enabled through the business and through the life.
Oh, I can feel the love, and I can feel the beautiful energy around that. So thank you for sharing so openly and honestly, Sara, and congratulations on the book, and cannot wait to see what comes next.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. Thanks for having me on the show. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening, lovely one. I hope this has inspired you to dream big and start creating a life you love today. If you love what you're hearing, don't forget to follow and rate on Spotify, and rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. It helps other awesome people to find this podcast and get motivated and inspired as well. Want to stay connected? Come and join the Live a Life You Love group on Facebook, or connect with me on Instagram, emmalovell.au. The same as my website, but all the details are in the show notes, lovely. I'll see you next episode for more inspiration, motivation, and freedom seeking. Now go out there and live a life you love.